shocking truth about her faked SEAL service, until the judge revealed the bone-chilling secret. The courtroom was hot, thick with tension, as whispers slithered through the gallery. Had she really faked her service? Ava Henderson stood center stage, her heart pounding like a drum in a silent room. She wore a crisp navy blazer, but under the surface, fear twisted in knots in her stomach. The judge, a weathered man with sharp eyes, was about to reveal something that could shatter her entire world. And everyone was leaning in, breaths caught between hope and horror. The atmosphere crackled with anticipation as rumors spiraled. Some claimed she'd worn the SEAL insignia without ever stepping foot in a boot camp. Others mumbled of a hidden past, one filled with shadows and deceit. And then there were the two soldiers who claimed they knew her, their faces a mix of disbelief and betrayal, as if someone had grabbed their very souls and toyed with them for fun. Heavy silence fell, the air thick with unspoken accusations. Something didn't add up. The papers had reported her as a decorated hero, a badge of honor pinned proudly on her chest. Yet the glimmer in the judge's eyes told another story. The way he tapped his gavel now, hard and deliberate, sent shivers down spines. Something loomed just out of sight. A truth looming like a thunderhead ready to burst. Just then the name Ava Henderson echoed throughout the courtroom, heavy with weight. Was she a fraud? Gasps echoed as people exchanged stories of her supposed heroics. Incredulous whispers pouring like streams, each tale stranger than the last. And just when the tension peaked, the judge lifted a single piece of paper, his voice a low rumble that penetrated the uneasy silence. The truth. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The judge turned the paper toward Ava, revealing a detailed document that looked like a biography gone wrong. Those words. They held the power to unravel the very fabric of her life. The gallery erupted, gasps mingling with sobs, a room layered with shock. Ava clutched her chest, breathless and wide-eyed. What did it say? The air felt electric, the audience teetering on the edge of their seats. Yet, one question hung heavier than all. Was her world about to implode? Or did the judge hold a surprising twist in his gavel? The tension mounted as a cold chill began to creep through the room. The judge cleared his throat, a weighty sound that boomed through the courtroom like a distant thunder. Ava Henderson, you stand accused of misrepresentation and defamation of service, he announced, each word dripping with authority. The room held its breath, every pair of eyes locked onto her. A portrait of disbelief and fury. Your Honor, she managed to croak, her voice trembling. I silence. He thundered, slamming his gavel once more, leaving her gasping like a fish out of water. The document in his hand swayed as he fought to retain the gathered chaos. 16 commendations, he continued, a strange satisfaction creeping into his voice, awarded for bravery that never occurred. The words sliced through Ava, each syllable curling into her gut. Commendations for what? For bravery she never earned? Murmurs erupted from the gallery, faces contorting in disbelief as accusations flew back and forth. The soldiers, their expressions darkened, exchanged glances filled with anger and confusion. This is treachery, one exclaimed, fists clenched hard at his sides. We trusted her. Ava felt her entire world teetering on the brink, the accusations slicing deeper than any enemy fire she'd faced in her wildest nightmares. I didn't lie. A panic swelled in her chest as she cast her gaze over to the two soldiers. Their eyes, once allies, now betrayers, pierced through her like arrows dipped in poison. Then explain this, the judge barked, thrusting another document toward her, the sound echoing like a bullet fired in the stillness. It was a military training record, but it held no trace of her name. You completed 0 days of service in any branch of the military. You are an imposter playing dress-up. Ava felt the walls of the room close in, the spectator's eyes boring into her soul like a spotlight scorching the truth out of hiding. Her pulse raced as she scanned the trembling faces, feeling the cold tendrils of horror creep through her veins. Everyone was watching. Everyone was staring. Could someone have forged these documents? She pleaded, desperation cracking her voice. I have served, please, you can't believe this. Outside the courtroom, the storm raged, raindrops pelting the windows like shells on an unsuspecting shore. Lightning flashed, illuminating the fear in Ava's eyes, desperate for anyone to believe her. We have witnesses, Miss Henderson, the judge continued, his voice a chilling calm. For fellow SEALs who claim they never met you. What do you have to say about that? Glimpses of certainty flared in her mind, but they shattered like fragile glass when she saw the faces of the witnesses lined up outside in the corridor. Men she'd sworn allegiance to. Were they aware of a darker truth? Just then, a figure stepped forward from the back of the gallery. A man dressed in a military uniform, a stranger yet somehow familiar. Your Honor, he interjected, his voice steady, I have vital information regarding Ava's past. A collective gasp swept through the courtroom. Ava's heart plummeted into a churning pit. What secret did this imposing figure hold? Would this flickering hope ignite the flames of truth, or was it another dagger aimed at her heart? In a moment suspended in time, everything felt impossibly fragile, then it shattered as the judge nodded for him to continue, and the atmosphere thickened once more. Everybody leaned forward, tangled in the web of suspense, waiting for the truth to unfurl, burning with curiosity. What revelation awaited them all? The man stepped forward, filling the courtroom with an air of authority. Ava squinted through the haze of panic, trying to recognize him. A flicker of recognition sparked in her mind as he spoke again. I'm Commander Blake Sinclair. We served together briefly during a covert operation. I can confirm her involvement. The judge's eyes narrowed. This was not included in your testimony, Commander. How convenient for you to remember now. Blake's jaw tightened. Because of the sensitive nature of the mission, the details were classified. So yes, it wasn't he disclosed before. Ava was there, she was brave. She saved lives. A wave of disbelief washed over the spectators. Whispers morphed into an uproar as the judge slammed his gavel anew, desperate for silence. And you have proof of this meeting? Because as it stands, we have no record of her service, nor any endorsement from fellow SEALs. The laws are clear. I have a photograph. He shouted, pulling out a weathered envelope from his uniform, the paper yellowed with time. His hands trembled slightly as he presented it, an image of a younger Ava, helmeted, surrounded by soldiers in camouflage. Ava's heart pounded. This felt like both a lifeline and a trap. Where was this taken? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. During a mission in the Middle East. On a night when he hesitated, glancing at the gallery, then back to the judge. When we lost men. Ava could have been one of them. Gripping the edge of the witness stand, Ava searched Blake's eyes. Were they working together? Or was he pulling her deeper into the abyss? Behind him, the soldiers' expressions morphed from anger to confusion, and then uncertainty. Was there still a flicker of hope for her? Do you realize what you're saying could condemn her? One of the witnesses blurted out, his voice shaky. It's an official violation of service status. I realize that. But the truth must prevail. Blake shot back. Objection. The judge barked. Let us not go down a rabbit hole of speculation. Unless there's documented proof, I will rule this testimony inadmissible. Ava felt as if she were caught in a storm, swirling around with no anchor in sight. Pieces of her past were suddenly rising to the surface like bodies in murky water, and she couldn't tell if they would save her or drown her. Blake's voice dropped, laced with urgency. Your Honor, I can find those records. You have to give me time to prove Ava was there. Enough. The judge's voice ricocheted across the room. We're not here to serve as a puppet in your game, Sinclair. Ava felt her throat tighten, choking back dread. How could Blake genuinely be here for her but still risk incriminating her further? Stand down. The judge ordered, glancing sharply at Blake. The courtroom fell eerily quiet, interrupted only by the distant thunder echoing outside. A chilling reminder of the storm brewing beyond the walls. Your Honor. Ava yelled, desperate. I need to know, was I really there? Was he telling the truth? The judge's eyes locked onto hers. It is not up to me to prove your innocence, Miss Henderson. You must remember. A moment of frozen silence enveloped them all. Would the past reveal its secrets, Or would Ava remain shackled to a narrative stitched together from lies? Just then she felt a hand on her shoulder. Startled, she turned to see one of the accused soldiers. Ava, don't trust him blindly. There's more to this story than you know. Bile rose in her throat as a flood of questions swarmed, each more profound, each more frightening than the last. What did he mean? Was there still something darker lurking beneath the surface, waiting to unravel the very fabric of her defense? Ava's mind raced, bouncing between fragments of memory and the soldier's warning. Fear pulsed through her veins, quickening her heart. What truth lay buried beneath layers of deception? As murmurings filled the courtroom, Ava felt the weight of all eyes on her, their judgment thickening the air. Miss Henderson, the judge's voice broke her reverie, sharp and commanding. You need to focus. If you have anything to say, now is the time. Your Honor, Blake stepped forward again, determination etched on his face. I believe we can get to the bottom of this. If Ava was where I say she was, there will be records, testimonies from those who served alongside us. Ava could hardly breathe. Her memories felt like a cobweb, delicate and easily shattered. There had been a mission, she was sure. But how much of it was real, and how much was a fabrication? The soldier's warning echoed in her mind. What deeper truth lay behind the images Blake had just presented? Before she could speak, another soldier in the gallery rose, putting a hand on his heart. This isn't right, he said with a fervor that caught everyone's attention. We need to be honest here. There are things. Who are you to question what is happening? Came a voice from the back, cutting him off. You think you're better than us? That you can just waltz in here with guilt dripping from your words? The courtroom was now a battlefield, tension crackling like static. Ava squirmed in her seat, feeling trapped. The judge glanced between the two men, eyebrows knitted in frustration. Order. This is not a forum for personal grievances. He slammed the gavel again, but Ava could sense the energy shifting. Your Honor, can we please take a recess? Ava blurted out, desperation driving her words. I need to gather my thoughts. I can't think clearly. Recess? On what grounds? The judge's tone was skeptical, but something in Ava's eyes must have conveyed the urgency she felt. His gaze softened for just a moment. Fine. 15 minutes. But use it wisely. He waved a dismissive hand, and the gavel struck once more, dismissing everyone. Ava shot to her feet, seeking the solace of the hallway. She had to think. Outside, voices buzzed chaotically, but all she could focus on was Blake's photograph. It tugged at the corners of her memory. Ava suddenly found herself in a secluded corner, bracing herself against the cool wall. Thoughts tumbled through her like leaves in a whirlwind. Was Blake her ally, or was it all a ploy to ensnare her deeper into a web of lies? Her stomach churned, uncertainty gnawing at her. The door creaked behind her. It was Blake, his face drawn but sincere. Ava, I need you to trust me, he said, his eyes dark and serious. There's more at stake here than you realize. Why should I trust you? She snapped, the words tasting bitter on her tongue. The hints of the soldier's warnings loomed like shadows over her mind. Because I want to protect you. And I believe in your innocence, Blake replied, his voice low. But we have to figure out what really happened. You need to remember. Ava shook her head, emotion flooding her. I don't even know what's real anymore. Blake stepped closer, intensity brewing in his gaze. Then let me help you. Meet me after the recess. I think I know someone who can bring the truth to light. She hesitated, torn between hope and the fear of further betrayal. The weight of her choices pressed heavily on her shoulders. Would she risk everything to glean the truth from the fog of her past? The echo of the judge's gavel shattered her thoughts, a reminder that time was running out. Ava. Blake's voice pulled her back from the abyss. You need to decide. She took a deep breath, her heart pounding. Would she step on this uncertain path in pursuit of answers that could either save her or destroy her? Just then, a chilling realization struck her. If the truth behind her past was darker than she could imagine, how much danger would she invite by seeking it out? As the courtroom door swung open for the recess, Ava was left with an unshakable question echoing in her mind. What if the truth was more terrifying than the lies? Ava leaned against the cold wall, her heart drumming in her chest like a warning bell. The voices from the courtroom faded into a dull murmur, replaced by the rapid beat of her own thoughts. The photo of Blake lingered in her mind, a haunting image that danced just out of reach, taunting her with fractured memories. She had trusted Blake once, hadn't she? And yet now, the more she thought about it, doubt clawed at the edges of her resolve. Was he truly there to help her? Or was there something darker lurking behind his earnest gaze? Rubbing her temples, she closed her eyes, trying to piece together the moments that slipped through her fingers like sand. A flash of green camouflage, the crack of gunfire, a frantic escape. But in the fog of her memories, coherence was nowhere to be found. Each fragment seemed to reshape into something she didn't recognize. Ava. The urgency in Blake's voice jolted her back to the present. He stepped closer, his expression taut. You have to come with me. Now. She hesitated, glancing back toward the courtroom where the murmurings had dwindled. Every passing second felt like a chance slipping away. What's going on? What could be so important? I have a contact. Someone who knew you, someone who can help you remember. Blake insisted, the heat of conviction in his voice. You don't have to do this alone. But what if it's a trap? She countered, her pulse racing. Blake's brow furrowed in frustration. If we stay here waiting, what will that accomplish? The longer you've hidden from the truth, the more dangerous it becomes. You have to choose, Ava. Either embrace the truth or let the lies consume you. A wave of anxiety crashed over her, yet the thought of remaining idle was unbearable. Her instincts shouted at her to trust him, but every fiber of her being screamed against taking that leap. Just then the courtroom door swung open, and people began to filter back inside. Shaking off her doubts, Ava made her decision. All right, lead the way. Blake took her hand gently, his grip steadying her as they moved through the crowd. She felt the stares of the gallery like daggers, whispers swirling around her. Some were sympathetic, others filled with disdain. The courtroom was a spectacle, and she was the centerpiece, the accused, the enigma, the liar they all wanted to believe in. They slipped into a narrow hallway that led to an unmarked exit. We don't have much time, Blake murmured, urgency etched across his face. What do you mean? Ava asked, an edge of panic surfacing. Let us just say there are people who don't want this truth to come out, he replied, pushing through the door into the bright sunlight. A chill rushed through her as she glanced back toward the court. What truth was Blake so afraid of? Outside, the air was brisk, the distant sounds of the city pulsing like a heartbeat. She followed him into a parked car, feeling the weight of her own uncertainty. The lethargy that had haunted her for so long felt as if it were being lifted with each passing moment. We're going to see someone who's been waiting for this, Blake said, stealing a glance at her as they pulled away. Someone who can help you understand everything. Who? She pressed, her chest tightening with curiosity mixed with dread. His name is Reed, he said quietly, and he knows more about you than you can imagine. Reed. The name echoed in her mind, sending her heart racing. She had heard it before, didn't she? As shards of memory began to coalesce, a sharp anxiety clutched her throat. Was this the lifeline she so desperately sought, or a descent into an abyss of chaos? As they drove deeper into the city, shadows loomed ahead, a darkness that promised revelations but also danger. Each mile felt treacherous, laden with secrets begging to be uncovered. But would she be prepared for whatever awaited her at the end of the journey? What if Reed had the answers she hoped for? Yet it all led back to the soldier's warning. What if in uncovering the truth, she unleashed something more sinister into her world? Just then, Blake's grip on the wheel tightened, eyes narrowing at an approaching vehicle. Ava, hold on. Behind this moment of urgency, a storm was brewing, and the truth may not be the only thing that would surface. Where would this road take them? And would the answers bring clarity or add to the chaos that surrounded her? The vehicle barreled toward them, its headlights slicing through the afternoon haze. Ava's heart raced as Blake swerved, the tires screeching against the asphalt. What the hell? She gasped, gripping the door with white knuckles. Blake's jaw set in determination, and with a quick flick of his wrist, he accelerated. The other car followed, relentless, as if it had a singular purpose. A sense of dread washed over her. She could feel the weight of another presence closing in on them, something ominous that stirred beneath the surface of their frantic escape. Who are they? She yelled over the roar of the engine, panic seeping into her voice. Blake, what's going on? Just keep your head down, he shouted back, focusing fiercely ahead. The throbbing cityscape blurred past as they weaved through traffic. A relentless siren wailed in the distance, echoing the rush of adrenaline coursing through her veins. Ava's thoughts raced faster than the car could drive. Reed was their potential salvation, but would they reach him before they were caught? "Blake, they're gaining on us," she cried. She dared a glance back, and the sight made her stomach twist into knots. The car's frame was dressed in dark paint, sleek and predatory, as if it were hungry for something more than just a chase. "We're almost there. Just hold on." His voice was steady, but she sensed the tension beneath it, a taut rope about to snap. Ava's mind stirred with fragments she couldn't fully grasp, memories rising like ghosts from an abyss. The soldier's warning, Blake's earnest yet shadowy demeanor. The name Reed echoing like a mantra. All of it danced around her mind like fireflies, but none of it brought clarity. "Blake!" she yelled again, panic pushing her to speak. "What truth are we trying to find? What does Reed know?" "It's not just about you," he said. His eyes locked on the road, thick with urgency. "It's about everything that's led up to this moment. Reed knows why you're in danger. Why we're all in danger." Ava sucked in a breath as another bullet grazed the side of the car, the loud crack echoing in her ears like an alarm bell. Her heart jolted. "We need to get away," she screamed. "We can't let them take us." "Hang on." Blake turned sharply into an alley, tires screeching against the damp pavement. The car rocketed forward, and the wall of buildings seemed ready to swallow them whole. As they rounded a corner, the vehicle behind them spilled into the alley, its headlights illuminating the dark space like a spotlight on a stage. Ava could make out the glint of steel guns. Everything she had feared coiled tightly in her gut, a venomous knot threatening to unravel her. "Get down!" Blake shouted a second time as he yanked the wheel again, sending them sideways, the pavement unforgiving beneath the desperate car. But as they lurched to the left, a voice pierced the chaos, a familiar one. "Ava!" It was Reed. The sight of him standing at the mouth of the alley filled with shadows, stocky and determined, sent a jolt through her veins, a flicker of hope against the suffocating darkness. "Blake, stop!" she urged, reaching for the door handle. The car screeched to a halt, and before Ava could process the situation, she was out and running toward Reed, her heart banging in her chest like a desperate prisoner. "Reed!" she gasped, her breath mingling with desperation. "They're coming." But he simply stood there, eyes narrowing at the dark vehicle, his silence palpable like an impending storm. "You have to trust me, Ava," he said finally, urgency drawing lines on his forehead. "There's a lot you don't know, and we are all racing against time." Before he could finish, a shot rang out, shattering the moment, splintering their fragile hope. As Ava ducked instinctively, everything seemed to slow, a moment frozen in the air. How much truth could she handle before it destroyed her? And at what cost? Ava looked at Blake, his eyes wide with fear and determination. She had a gnawing feeling that exposure to the truth could lead to more than just revelations. It could unravel the very fabric of her life. "Run!" Reed shouted, motioning toward the shadowy depths of the alley as another shot ricocheted off the brick wall. With adrenaline propelling her forward, Ava sprinted, the echoes of chaos behind them rising like a symphony of dread. But what awaited them in the dark might not be salvation, it could be an awakening filled with nightmares she'd never anticipated. The truth was out there, lurking in the darkness, but at what cost would she unearth it? What remained hidden? And who was truly pulling the strings behind this dangerous game? Ava's feet pounded against the uneven pavement, the sound merging with the rapid beat of her heart. The shadows of the alley grasped at her like fingers, pulling her back towards the chaos. Each breath felt heavier, each second stretching taut as time threatened to snap. She stole a glance over her shoulder, Blake's face a portrait of fear, desperately glancing around for their escape route. "Ava!" Reed's voice was steely, grounding her even amidst the panic. "This way!" He gestured down a particularly dark section of the alley, where the light from the street seemed afraid to enter. She didn't hesitate. Trust? It danced on the edge of her mind, but in that moment, it felt like their only option. The urgency in Reed's voice urged her forward, away from the danger that stalked them. The echo of another gunshot ricocheted against the walls, a sharp reminder of their reality. Ava felt the cold knot of fear tighten in her stomach. Were they cornered? Or was there another way out? "Go!" Blake urged, pushing her to move faster. Dark shapes rushed from behind them, shadows morphing into men with menacing intent. As they sprinted deeper into the gloom, Ava could feel the ground shifting beneath her, and a moment of clarity. Reed dashed to the side, pointing toward a narrow opening between the buildings. There. We can lose them. They veered left, squeezing through the gap. The sharp edges of the buildings clawed at her as she forced her body forward, the adrenaline flooding her with a raw urgency that felt almost primal. As they emerged into a small courtyard, Ava noticed trash scattered in corners, and the sickly sweet smell of old refuse lingering in the air. It was quiet here, eerily so. Her instincts screamed that it was too quiet. She pressed on, resisting the urge to look back. We need a plan, Blake said, voice laden with urgency. Yet there was a tremor beneath his calm facade. Ava felt the weight of the unsaid words hanging between them, questions that spun like webs in her mind. What if Reed had answers that could shift their fates? Do you really think Reed can protect us? She whispered, catching Blake's eye. What do we really know about him? More than we think, Blake replied, barely keeping his voice steady. Before she could respond, Reed dashed towards them, his expression fierce and focused. They'll catch up to us soon. We need to split up. Ava's heart sank. What do you mean split up? That's crazy. Trust me. Reed snapped, his tone leaving no room for debate. You need to get to the old library at the end of Broad Street. I'll lead them away. Once you're inside, look for the files on the 4th floor. You'll find everything you need. Everything. Panic clawed at her throat. But Reed. She hesitated, torn between loyalty and fear. What if go? Reed's voice boomed, cutting through her thoughts like a razor. Now. Don't look back. It was the final push they needed. Without thinking, Blake grabbed Ava's hand, pulling her away from the courtyard. Each step was laden with uncertainty, but they pressed on, propelled by a grim determination to survive. They surged around the corner, hearts racing. The night air turned electric with tension, shadows flickering at the edges of vision as they approached Broad Street. Just a few more blocks and they could find sanctuary. Do you trust him? Blake asked, glancing sideways as they ran. I don't know, Ava admitted, breathless. But we don't have a choice. Just as they reached the street, the echo of laughter sliced through the air like glass breaking, shattering any sense of safety. A group loomed ahead, silhouetted against the dim light, eyes glinting with intent. Blake stopped, eyes widening. Ava, we need to hide. But there was nowhere left to run. Suddenly, a dark figure stepped forward from the group, and Ava's heart dropped. The familiar face, twisted into a cruel grin, was one she never expected to see. Thought you could run from us? The voice dripped with malice, and Ava felt the ground shift beneath her as she came face to face with an enemy she thought she had left behind. What did they know? What secrets had Reed not revealed? A deep fear settled in her chest, but alongside it was an insatiable curiosity. Maybe it was time to find out just how deep this rabbit hole went. Could they truly escape the past? Or were they already tangled in a web that couldn't be unraveled? Ava's breath caught in her throat as recognition swept over her like a cold wave. It was Callum, her brother's best friend, a name she had whispered in the safe shadows of her memories. But the boy she once knew had vanished behind eyes now filled with hostility. He had the nurturing shadows of friendship replaced by a smirk that felt laced with venom. Callum, she managed, her voice a brittle whisper. What are you doing here? The twisted grin on his face widened, and the laughter that had echoed moments earlier felt like daggers aimed straight at her heart. Well, Ava. You thought you could just disappear? The truth has a funny way of catching up with you. Behind him, the rest of the group shifted, an unseen mass closing in. The air was thick with fear, the threat of silence looming ominously like a storm cloud ready to break. Blake tightened his grip on Ava's hand. We need to back away, he muttered, surveying the situation. But there was nowhere to retreat. The alleyway lay behind them, a dark abyss of uncertainty. This isn't your fight, Callum. Ava pleaded, searching for any trace of the boy who used to make her laugh. You don't have to do this. But his laughter crescendoed, a sound that sent shivers down her spine. Oh, but it is my fight. You've dragged all of us into your little web of deceit. Don't you see what you've done? Something shifted within her chest. What are you talking about? The files, he replied, voice dripping with disdain. What could you possibly be looking for that you thought we wouldn't find out? A rush of confusion and realization swept over Ava. Reed had warned them about the files, but what had he meant about everything? What truth was he burying beneath the weight of their escape? Whatever you think you know, you're wrong. She shot back, the defiance rising within her like a fire igniting. I just want the truth. Ah, the truth. Callum's gaze darkened, and he stepped closer, forcing Ava and Blake to close ranks. It's always the truth, isn't it? The truth can set you free, but it can also tear you apart. Blake whispered in a frantic tone, Ava, we need a distraction. If we can just slip around him before he could finish. Callum turned suddenly alert. You think you can run again? The game has changed, Ava, and the stakes? They've never been higher. With a swift motion, he raised his hand, signaling his followers to close in. The flickering shadows transformed into figures, stepping forward with intent. Vague silhouettes that looked almost familiar, but they weren't friends. They were predators. Ava's heart raced. The dark breaths of fear and resolve ignited something inside her. Get back! She screamed, breaking from Blake's grasp, fueled by a primal instinct to protect. But Callum lunged, grabbing her wrist with a grip that felt like chains of ice. You can't escape your past, Ava. You need to face it. In that instant, an unexpected sound pierced the air. A gunshot rang out. Panic erupted. Ava's heart thundered, and the world spun around her as Callum released her in shock, pulling away just as dread gripped everyone present. Run! Blake shouted, pulling Ava back into motion, adrenaline crashing through them. They dashed past Callum, whose stunned face turned crimson with rage as they fled toward the ominous sheets of the library visible in the distance. One question blazed in her mind. What truth was Callum so desperate to unveil? What had Reed hidden that could change everything? Ava ran, knowing this was far from over. They were tangled now, and the web had dark corners yet to be explored. Would they find the answers they sought? Or would the fragmented pieces of the past bring everything crashing down? As they rounded the corner, Blake skidded to a stop. Ava! Wait! His voice was edged with fear. In front of them, the library loomed large, a fortress of secrets and revelation. But that wasn't what stopped her cold. Standing by the library doors was a figure she never expected to see, a face that made her blood run cold yet again, and just like that, the ground shifted once more under her feet. Ava's breath hitched as she stared at the figure standing illuminated beneath the library's flickering lights. The sight of him sent ice coursing through her veins. It was her father, a man she had thought was long gone from her life, yet here he was, looking every bit the phantom haunting her memories. Shadows hugged him like an old friend, and for a moment, she was paralyzed by disbelief. What are you doing here? She stammered, her heart pounding like a war drum against her ribs. His eyes flicked to Blake, then back to her, narrowing in recognition. Ava, you need to listen to me, he said, his voice gravelly and urgent. This is not what you think. Blake stood close by, tension coursing through him like a live wire. Your dad? You're kidding, right? He asked incredulously. We don't have time for this. We should. Blake. Ava cut him off, her voice sharper than she intended. Let him speak. She felt a strange tension coiling in her gut. There was so much she wanted to know, but fear held her in place. Your mother, she was involved in something dangerous, he began, stepping closer, his shadow stretching long over the cracked pavement. That's enough. Callum's voice thundered from behind them, his smirk replaced with something darker. A beast waiting to pounce. Doesn't he matter, Ava? He's not your hero. He's part of the mess. Ava's heart twisted at Callum's words. She wanted to believe her father had answers, but doubt clawed at her. How could she trust him after all this time? But before she could respond, the alley erupted with another gunshot, echoing off the brick walls like a vicious bark of a mad dog. Blake shoved her backward, shielding her with his body as they scrambled towards the door. The corridor loomed ahead, a labyrinth of uncertainty, and they had no choice but to dive into the unknown. We have to go now, he yelled, urgency lacing his voice. Ava felt the weight of her father's gaze on her, his worry palpable. Ava, listen. I'm no threat. They are. But his words were swallowed by the chaos as they raced through the library doors into an overwhelming darkness. Inside, the smell of old books and dust mixed with the adrenaline still pumping through Ava's veins. she gasped, trying to usher her thoughts into something coherent. Rows of towering shelves created a maze around them, shadows retreating and returning like anxious ghosts. Which way? Blake demanded, his voice barely above a whisper, panic edging his tone. I don't know, she replied, her mind racing. The truth the files read mentioned it must be in here somewhere. We just have to find them. Blake shot her a sidelong glance, and the fire in his eyes mirrored her own determination. Then let us find it before Callum and his crew do. Ava pushed forward, but the air felt thick, suffocating her resolve. She scanned the shelves, but suddenly a sound broke through the silence, a muffled voice echoing from the rear of the library. Where did they go? It was Callum's voice, low and menacing, cutting through the tension like a knife. Panic surged. They're coming, she breathed. We got to move. Blake gripped her arm, leading her down a narrow aisle. The dim light flickered around them, shadows stretching ominously as if alive, mocking their flight. With every footstep, the reality of their plight settled heavy upon her shoulders. Which way? He asked, urgency painted across his features. Just keep going, Ava replied, her heart racing. I feel like something's waiting for us. Something we need. Just as they reached the end of the aisle, a figure appeared before them, backlit by a solitary lamp. It was a librarian, her expression one of concern muddled with confusion. Are you all right? She asked, but her voice drifted into the chaos surrounding them. Behind the librarian, Ava caught a glimpse of something glinting, the edge of a metal file cabinet. Slightly ajar, in an instant, the tension crystallized. The answers might be right there. But the split second of hope vanished as the sound of footsteps thundered through the library's depths. Run! Blake shouted one last time. They barreled toward the glimmering promise of truth, just as Callum's furious shouts echoed behind them. But would they uncover the secrets hidden within those files before it was too late? The weight of their past was closing in, and as the voices grew louder, a shocking realization dawned upon Ava. In that moment of truth, she understood one thing. Nothing would ever be the same again. The library's air was thick with tension as Ava sprinted towards the metal cabinet. Blake was right behind her, urgency firing them onward. It felt as though time had slowed, the shadows of doubt creeping closer with each echoing thump of Callum's footsteps. Heart racing, Ava reached for the cabinet, ripping it open to reveal rows of documents, dossier after dossier detailing covert operations, missions lost to time, and names she couldn't remember. Here, she exclaimed, her fingers skimming the pages hungrily, seeking the truth that had eluded her for so long. We need to find anything on Mom, or the thought of her father waiting in the shadows loomed large. Did he know? Blake shifted anxiously, eyes scanning the dim light and shadows whipping around them. We don't have much time, Ava. We need to move. Ava's hands trembled, thumbing through the files, searching for something concrete and undeniable. What if it was all for nothing? The weight of uncertainty clung to her, but she pressed on. There has to be something here. Her voice wavered between hope and despair. Just then, a voice echoed through the aisles, low and menacing. They're here somewhere. Ava's heart dropped. Callum was close, and he wouldn't stop until he found them. She felt the heat rising, panic flooding her veins. We can't get caught. Let us go, Blake urged, grabbing her arm and pulling her away just as a shadow loomed at the end of the aisle. They bolted down another corridor nicked by the fragile glow of an overhanging light, diving around the corner. The soft crunch of boots against gravel echoed behind them, urgency amplifying the adrenaline coursing through her. Ava, we can't lose them, Blake insisted, glancing back. The files were a risk, a chance they had to take. If we can find something about the mission, something to connect the dots. She desperately racked her brain. Before she could finish her thought, a loud crash rang out, resonating like thunder against the shelves as Callum barreled into the library's main hall, his crew, the predatory shadows, trailing closely. The scent of danger raged like smoke, thickening around them. Ava, this is playing with fire, Blake hissed as they burst through a set of double doors leading to an emergency exit. Just trust me, she yelled, her feet pounding against the steps that led to the library's secluded back entrance. With a shove, they pushed through the door into the alley. As the heavy door slammed behind them, they were engulfed in the quickening tension of the alley's darkness. But relief and the chill of dread came when they found a breath of space. They emerged onto a deserted street, the moon casting pale shadows over the cracked pavement. Ava could hear the footsteps behind them fading momentarily into the library. "Where now?" Blake asked, the urgency in his voice cracking the night around them. "I think I need to go back to him." Ava's heart thudded at the thought of her father. It was like standing at the edge of a cliff. Could she trust the man who had left her all those years ago? "Are you sure? We don't know what his intentions are." Blake's voice was a mixture of concern and determination, but Ava could feel the pull of her father southwards tugging close, even amidst the fog of uncertainty. "I need to know," she replied, her tone resolute. "If he's right, then whatever is coming, whatever truth is out there, we need to face it." Blake hesitated, but then he nodded, his resolve hardening like iron. "All right. You lead and I'll follow. But we need to." A piercing laugh sliced through the air, echoing down the street. Callum's voice, laced with malice, rang out. "You think you can run forever? You can't escape the truth, Ava." A rush of fear surged through her, spurring her into motion. "We have to hurry." As they moved through the dimly lit streets, each step felt like an eternity filled with dread and uncertainty. Every shadow could hold danger. When they finally reached the site where her father had last been, it was quiet, too quiet. The street corner felt alive with tension as they rounded the turn. There he was, standing near the flickering lamp, the shadows clinging to him like shrouds of the past. "Ava, you've come back," he said, voice heavy yet urgent. "I need answers." She blurted out, facing her father. "About Mom. About everything. You can't leave me in the dark anymore." "Ava, listen to me." He stepped forward and Ava could see the worry knitting his brow. "You need to be careful. There are forces at work you can't comprehend. Callum is not the only one looking for you." Confusion clouded her thoughts. "What do you mean? What are you talking about?" Blake, standing just shy of her shoulder, fit so nicely into this chaotic puzzle. "We can't be surprised by his loyalties. We have to keep moving." Ava felt the world shift as a flash of anger surged. She turned sharply. "No. I want the truth. No more hiding in the shadows." "You think you're ready for the truth?" her father challenged, voice low and gravelly. "I promise you're ill-prepared for what lies ahead. I don't have the luxury of being scared anymore. I refuse to be a pawn." Beneath the tension, a flicker of understanding passed between them. Her father's gaze was steely yet tempered with a semblance of respect as he stepped closer. "All right. But remember, knowing could cost you everything." As she stared into her father's eyes, Ava felt a curtain lift. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about confronting the demons buried deep. She glanced at Blake, whose face mirrored her determination, mingled with fear. "Let us do this." Her choice echoed, solid as a rock, as the shadows closed in once more. Together they would face the truth. And at that moment the sky crackled. They had taken their first steps into a storm, but they were ready to unveil what lay hidden, come what may. Ava inhaled deeply, determination coursing through her veins like fire. The truth awaited. Not like a gentle whisper, no. It would come roaring like thunder. It was time to face it. But could they really handle the repercussions of uncovering everything? They were prepared to find out. You need to subscribe now to keep up with this adventure. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep these stories alive. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about how this ends. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Join us again next time as we uncover the truth.